listening to the Concierge Coaches Show with Bruce Cameron and Wayne Fritz, only on LA Talk Radio.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Concierge Coaches Show here on LA Talk Radio. I'm Bruce Cameron. Wayne is out this week, but he'll be back next time to share his insights and all that good stuff. So, well, this week, folks, we have a special guest with us. You know, I always like to get other coaches on the show. I think probably close to 40% of our listenership are people that are coaches or folks contemplating becoming a coach. So our guest today is going to be very germane to that topic. So I'd like to welcome Caroline Chatham. Caroline.
Hey, good afternoon, y'all. I'm Caroline Chatham. I'm coming to you live, like Bruce is, from Dallas, Texas. Pleasure to be here and excited to chat, Bruce.
Okay, yeah, good to have you on the show. And so I guess we'll just kind of start from near the beginning. I mean, how did you get interested in becoming a coach in the first place? Kind of, and then walk through some of your college experience and stuff too. But yeah.
Right. I guess I'll start from the beginning. Attended Covenant Christian Academy. If anyone knows that school, I know you know plenty of people who have attended there. Very classical education. Prepared me for Baylor. Went to Baylor, was a business major, and then moved over to corporate comm, minor in business admin, which has served me very well. And loved Baylor, good experience. But again, I'll talk a little bit more in the future about my ADHD struggles there, and then graduated in 4, which was a miracle. Studied abroad twice, so can't believe I graduated on time. Great. And then got out of school and started as a real estate agent, which I currently am, and I really do enjoy it. And if anyone knows anything about real estate, it's very people-focused, people-oriented. And you have to be able to make relationships with the other realtors, with the other clients, acquiring new clients, always selling yourself and really relating to people. And that's something that I excel at. Gotten quite good at the real estate thing, and I really enjoy it. I do. But I started to realize, what do I enjoy about this? I'm good at it. I feel like it's kind of, a well-oiled machine at this point. My business has gotten more refined. Obviously, in real estate, you can always do better, do more volume, more clients. But I started to find that the piece that really fulfilled me was the most life-giving was the people, was the relationships, was the art of the deal, but with other humans and that relationship piece. So I started to think about, how can I do something that's, again, more life-giving and I feel like just more meaningful for me and on my day-to-day. And I've known Bruce for a couple of years and had the pleasure of being able to shadow him and see how awesome and fantastic and really spectacular you are with your clients. And that inspired me. So one day I was like, you know what? I've had several people tell me that I should go get certified. And so I did it and loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I already have a client, hopefully acquiring 1 or 2 more in the next month or so. So things are going quite well.
And also you come from a mental health background in terms of your family members and stuff like that, right? I mean,
Yes, correct.
that are professionals in the field.
Yes. Like yourself, my mother is a marriage counseling or marriage coach. It's more of a coaching style, and also mediator. So they specify working with clients specifically within, usually Gateway Church is the referral for that, but they have their own ministry. So she's incredible. I look up to her so much. She's an amazing problem solver. And I like to think maybe I got just a few of those genes. So she's excellent. I've grown up seeing her be just such a strong woman and such a problem solver. And so that's been inspiring to me as well. And a huge influence since I can remember. And then my older sister is an LPC.
Wow.
Yes. And she does marriage and family. And she went to Baylor, went to DTS, and just came out hot and is crushing it. I mean, she's incredible. I think within 2 years, she works for a private practice. Within 2 years, I think she had to cap her client list.
Wow.
Yes. She's So just when we talk about Enneagrams, if anyone listening knows your Enneagram, she's an Enneagram 2. And so she has that heart for people and that genuine concern. When you sit in the room with her, you feel cared for without her even having to say a thing. So that inspires me as well.
Man, so
Yeah,
that's good. So no, I mean, I think that's important for everybody to know that about you. You know, being, you know, for instance, my mom and my sister are both professional musicians.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, but holy cow, you know, I know a lot about it, and I'm fairly proficient in an instrument or two, but I'm not. See what I mean? But yet having that musical background,
Yes,
helped me. Fun fact. My mom passed away, so I could say this, but she was a piano teacher. She had a studio in the house, and I remember one time she turned down this kid. This family called, and she turned him down, and I knew she had room in her practice, but the kid at the time had severe ADHD, and he might have been a Downs, somewhere in the Downs side too. And I said, hey, I'll take the kid. I was 17 at the time. And she said, you know what? If you have the patience to teach a kid like that, then you do it. So there was a studio upstairs and a studio downstairs. We lived in Northwest Houston at the time. I took this kid, and this kid played Three Blind Mice like a concierge. Van Cliburn. He's like Van Cliburn playing Three Blind Mice or something else. Bro, people were crying. I mean, because they knew what was up when this kid got out of his chair, right? Woo! And so from that moment on, man, and then I had this reputation for teaching piano to special needs kids. And all of a sudden, my practice is as big as my mom's practice, and realize now this is 1979, right? I mean, all this stuff hadn't really been fleshed out, I mean, the kids were there and the kids had needs. Anyway, I digress, right? But what a huge ass turn. Boom. I thought, well, you know what? I think I'm going to be a psychology major. You know what I mean? And so that started that trajectory for me, right? So
it was planted that you could do that. And that's such a niche thing, especially for in the 70s.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting because something and I always had this attitude about everything like, well, what makes you think you're qualified to teach them piano? And I'm like, well, all I got to do is be better than them. I mean, it's cruel, but you know what I mean? Or I'm 2 or 3 standard deviations better. But, hey, I'm teaching them, as long as they're growing, as long as they're learning new things. And then, actually a good teacher always hand off a super kid, to a concert, level teacher,
Right.
And anyhow, all right.
So that's really cool. I love to just follow that little thread that from a young age in you inspired that, okay, I can coach people. I can do this. I'm interested in mental health.
Yeah.
Because your mom was a piano teacher.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing how God does that? He's like, all right, we're just going to sprinkle here, sprinkle there. And here you go, son.
And it got even better. I went from there to the state mental hospital and the federal prison. So, I mean, it was boom, 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 boom. It's just really the first part of that. And look, man, I mean, the irony, if there is, I mean, I don't identify as a musician. I don't identify, as, yes, I was a piano teacher, but for very beginner students, and so anyway, okay. So back to your situation. I'm excited to hear from what I remember and understand is that the client, when the clients, I guess, that you and I decided that we talk about today categorically.
Yes.
Now, my sense is it's a young man you've been working with for quite some time. So, talk to us about that. Like, talk to us about, at least in a process way, where that client was at the beginning years ago.
Right.
Some of the things that you did over, this client, y'all, is a little bit atypical because if my memory serves me right, she's worked with this client off and on for years. So this is kind of a developmental client, y'all. Okay. So let's
10
get the
plus years.
hands out.
10 plus years. I mean,
Yeah.
I have known this individual for a long time, and I've gotten permission to speak.
Oh, good.
Yes. About just generalities.
Yeah.
Wonderful young man. Wonderful, wonderful. And, Bruce has spent time with him. I've spent time with him. And Bruce and I were actually able to spend some time together with him, which was really wonderful. And just huge growing and learning experience for me. And one of the reasons that I'm here today. So speaking about this young man, very, very bright. He is on the spectrum. And so that obviously has a lot of different issues, both social, can have nutritional, emotional, regulation, all of those things. It really, it's neurodivergency. But for me, I can relate to the child because as a young child, I'm ADHD. So I'm also neurodivergent. So from a very young age, we had a very close bond. And, growing up, I would watch him and take care of him and look after him. And so I got to see him grow up and develop and see the struggles that he was having were so based on things that were outside of his control. It was things that he wasn't absorbing, that he wasn't able to put into practice, like your, I hate to say average, but your typical, neurotypical child would be able to handle. So I was able to see that. And again, I was just a kid. So I'm just watching this. I'm just learning. I'm absorbing. And as he's getting older, there just became more and more behavioral issues. And it's so hard to watch. It's so hard to watch it for the family and the parents. And so I got really a front seat for this. And sometimes a tragic way because things were really difficult at times. But he really is a success story and has gotten so much better and is beginning to thrive, beginning to step into his own and beginning to be an adult. So I'm really proud of him, but it is for any parents listening, it is a long journey, and children, kids, adults that are neurotypical, you have more hurdles to go through, but it's possible. You just got to be patient. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Very good. So, and I'm wondering if you could give, like, I'll give an example. Like, okay, so for the first couple of years, the coaching I focused on X, 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. And then after year 3, 4, 5, I kind of focused on X, Y, Z. See what I mean?
Right.
Can you chunk up some of the things, some of the coaching things you did? I'm not saying don't get specific, but be categorically specific, I guess.
Right.
Early, middle, and then where you are today. Like,
right.
Where you are today, right? As you said, he's thriving. Mm-hmm. The reason why that is because he had mastered some things in the past. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Things that you okay.
Correct. Yes. Well, I think, can I move off of him because that's more personal?
Yeah, sure.
I move to my actual client. So he was
sure.
kind of a practice client.
Okay.
Because I was paid for his care. It was a natural life coaching situation. You kind of step into that parenting role, which is a really sacred role. So let's move over to my actual current client. I think that'll be a little bit more interesting to you because it's a little bit more ADHD focused. Oh. And y'all, shocker, that's going to be my niche there. So, so my current client is also a wonderful young man, went off to university and is just having some struggles adapting. There are some skills that were maybe not learned in middle school and high school, and he was kind of smart enough to get away with them, right? And was diagnosed late with ADHD, and now he's attending university, and he started off just struggling. In high school, if you have good teachers that can kind of babysit you through it and kind of help you, but in college it's like survival of the fittest. I mean, it's when you go to these big universities, you're in classes with hundreds of kids. you've got to do the homework. You've got to do the steps. And I found with him, I've been able to sit down with him weekly, set the goal and say, okay, what can we do for this week? How can we help you this week? And I find with people with ADHD, and I did this myself as a young child and adolescent, depending on, because there's 7 different types and we can go into that later, but depending on your ADHD type and how severe it is, we tend to bury our head in the sand and be able to kind of just push out the noise and almost give up and go, it's fine, it'll work out. And you go into this state of denial, right? And I hate saying this phrase, bury my head in the sand, because my mom used to always say this to me in high school. She's like, you can't just bury your head in the sand. You have to do the work. It's not going anywhere. It's coming. Your test is coming. And it's so the wild thing as a kid with ADHD, and I experienced it, many of them are able to, especially if they're have high screen time, are able to kind of disassociate in a way. And I don't want to throw around a medical term, but that to me is at least how it feels. And I know for many other ADHD people that have it, you're able to kind of step away and be like, oh, it's fine, and just live really, really in the present. And that can be so dangerous. So having a weekly meeting with them to kind of shock them back into the reality in a kind way, while letting them express their feelings of, okay, hey, I'm really struggling in this class. And a lot of times for kids, it's not specifically the class. It's because they're a relator and their professor feels their professor's been cold to them. So there's something that's there. So then we talk about that. Okay, what are ways that you could maybe make this professor feel more friendly? And sometimes that's a motivator. So just kind of finding what motivates each person, each kid. And this particular young man, it was very, and I don't want to say that his parents didn't see it, because they're wonderful parents, wonderful, like great, very hands-on. But there's just some things, sometimes you get blinded to your own children, I believe, and you kind of miss things because they've been doing it for years. So you might see it as normal. So I'm kind of that middle woman that's like, hey, do we think about this? Have you thought about maybe, for some kids, it's reading upside down. They can't read, they can't stay focused, sitting like this. Now, if you're ADHD, you're thinking, okay, my brain's rushing, the blood is rushing to my brain. I have 3 minutes to get through this one section, and that's exciting. That's dopamine giving. So they'll do it, and they'll read the chapter, and they'll memorize it. Or if it's putting a gummy bear every other paragraph to get through it, because it's a kinesthetic grab and reward, right? So there's little hacks and these tricks, and it's just, you've got to find what works for you.
Oh, that's pretty good. And I bet you also do work with the parents. Kind of talk about that.
Yes. Yeah. So I think a lot of people in my position don't enjoy this as much, but I enjoy interacting with the parents, because 9 times out of 10, and I don't mean for that to be a brag, that's just facts, I'm coming out of the interaction with the child, the adolescent, and I have a solution for the parents. I have, hey, here's what we did this week. And so I get to talk to them about that and say, hey, first of all, establishing the relationship between the client and the parent, and hey, what's okay to be shared? Your parents are paying for this, okay? But what's okay for you to be shared? What are you comfortable? Are you comfortable with just these little tidbits of, hey, we've set up a plan to get your math score up by X amount of points? If that's what they're comfortable with, great. If they're comfortable with me, sitting down and all talking, then great. That's even better. So it's kind of, the relationship is dictated by the client, because most of the time they are over, 18. And if they are even, 16, 17, a lot of times if possible, I try to encourage the parents to give them that autonomy to choose, because like, as well as many others, when you choose it yourself and it's not forced upon you, especially very resistant ADHD children, they're more likely to go with it.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece, to be able to interface between your client and the parents, or the stakeholders, if you will. And so that's a real important piece, to be able to do that and get that rhythm and kind of know that balance between what you can share with the parents and what you share, or you don't share with the parents, obviously.
Right.
So that's a really, really, I love the gummy bear thing and reading upside down. There's a lot of other, techniques like that.
Tons.
It's really useful, right?
And it's exciting because the kids get to go and try it. It's here's a task. You can go home. You have to go to the, You've got to go and study for 1 hour. Here's something you can go and try right now. And it's
You know,
very, that kind of need for immediate, reward is satisfied.
And I think, and I do want to talk about the different types of ADD, because I know there's adult ADD. There's, it's kind of was never diagnosed
Right.
young and kind of comes on 20s, 30s, even 40s for some.
Right.
There's of course, the attention deficit with hyperactivity, or just folks that have just the attentional, almost petit mal seizure, but just attentional deficit. Those are the ones I'm familiar with. So I guess if you could give a little breakdown of the different types of ADHD or ADD.
Okay.
And
all right, I'm going to warn you, I'm a nerd on this. So just, jump in if you have any questions.
I'm ready.
So a lot of this is Dr. Amen he's the man that does all the brain scans. I look up to him. I've been following him since I think middle school. When I was diagnosed originally with ADHD, he was still the leading researcher. So anyways, respect him a lot. And I really enjoy reading his literature. He has a book called Curing ADHD, but you kind of get to the end of the book and realize it's not curable, but you can find things to help you, right?
Right.
So I like him a lot because he offers, yes, you can medicate with, gosh, I hate to, name the medication, but when you think of ADHD, you think of Adderall and you think of, Concerta. There's all these different drugs. Right. He gives parents that are more holistic medicine or Chinese medicine alternatives like L-theanine, different things that they can take to try first, or GABA before they go into medications, which I'm like, yes, kids on less medications, thumbs up. We like that. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to start by saying, I think people with ADHD really want to just put themselves in a box and just find one. And so I hope anyone listening to this, try not to put yourself in a box too much and look at it so rigorously. We're like, oh, these are my exact symptoms. A lot of these are interchangeable. People tend to fall into one of the 7. I do, and I'll share my experience with that as well. But these are just the general 7. And again, I am not an expert on this. I soon will be, hopefully, but I'm getting there. So first, you have your very typical ADHD, type 1. And there's 5 attributes, and these 5 attributes will typically be throughout the rest, the other 6. So they'll repeat. I will, save you guys the time of saying them each time. I'll just say the 5 classic and then move on from there. So classic: inattentive, distractible, hyperactive, disorganized, and impulsive. So yeah, so those are the 5. Those are the big 5. So if you're listening right now and you have all of those things and you are 70 years old, my love, you might have ADHD. You might. And then precursor, the DSM-3 ruled out ADD as a diagnosis. It's now all ADHD. Right. So ADD, yes, because there's either hyperaction in the brain or physical hyperaction. Right. So anyways, moving on. So classic ADHD, they have normal brain activity in the rest of the brain, but whenever they're trying to concentrate on a task, their dopamine deficiency increases, so it drops. So it's so frustrating for most people with ADHD because they're trying to sit and they're trying to read and their brain is fighting them. And so you have these, 11, 12-year-old kids that are trying to, get through their, level 2, 3 reading, and they're trying to focus and they're not able to. So it can be super frustrating for a kid, and a lot of times can lead to rage issues and defiancy issues. So it's really important for parents to keep an eye on it. Anyway, so and it can be treated. It's kind of nice. You can treat it with basal ganglia and a lot of different dopamine producing supplements. So you don't have to immediately go on a Vyvanse, but it is the typical stimulant recommended diagnosis. So type 2, inattentive ADHD. So this a lot of times it's usually girls, and it's usually girls in their late kind of like teens that get diagnosed because they're smart enough to get through. They're usually more introverted to themselves, but they are, again, the 5 classic ADHD, and they have a dopamine deficiency as well as, regular ADHD, but they have low activity in their free frontal cortex. And so that has to do with regulation and emotional regulation, especially, and processing information that's in front of you.
Okay.
Well, it's a struggle, and can also have social anxiety, kind of pulling back because they feel like they don't belong. And there's a lot of social aspects to type 2.
Okay.
So number 3 is super interesting. This one I've read a lot about. So it's over focused ADHD.
Focused. Okay.
Over focused. So they're basically so focused that they're almost like, it would be like you're looking at the page and you're staring at the words. Does that make sense?
Right. But it's not like OCD. It's more.
No. Yes. No, but they can be very like thought to thought, task to task, like everywhere. And then when they really try to focus, it just slows down.
Oh.
But these are the people that are like, I'm in the gym, I'm here. They always need stimulation. They always need something going on. And a lot of times these people can have this extreme need for activity and stimulation can cause them to burn out at a young age. And then they'll end up sometimes maybe on antidepressants or mood regulators. Yes, because their brain has been firing and their cortisol levels are so high and their dopamine and everything. It's just, and their brain, if you look at the scans, their brain is on fire because they're constantly going. And these can be very, very productive people. If you know it's funny because the 3 Enneagram is the achiever and this is type 3 ADHD, and those two could go hand in hand because they are just
over focused is type 3.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And they can also, but the downside is they can get very, though they can get fixated on starting the new business, like this project, and then they go, and then they burn out. It's very hard for them to finish projects, specifically more than any other type of ADHD. So, and then they also, so that their cingulate gyrus is it's the part of our brain that allows us to be flexible between plans, allows us to go, oh, we're going to Burger King. Oh, wait, the bros want to go to Whataburger. And this guy's like it's causing him anxiety because he's so set and excited for that other plan, and all of his dopamine and everything is firing towards Burger King. And then when it's changed to Whataburger, he's like, they are confused, and this can often lead to anxiety, rage issues if it's not regulated. And again, there's varying levels, but if someone goes undiagnosed with this one, especially a male, could present as almost someone that would have like a brain injury, very angry. So this one hopefully shows up early, but it could also be masked as like masculine, testosterone rage. So parents of young men, look out for this one. Yes.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting, right? Especially the cingulate gyrus. That piece to me is, I'm like, do I have that problem? Because I sometimes have problems switching between.
Because I wonder on some of the teens I've seen how some of the oppositional, defiant outbursts about homework or other types of task demands were as a result of this type of ADHD and not so much an oppositional, defiant disorder per se,
Right.
Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, no, that's very, yeah. And it's funny. You look back on kids that you went to school with, or you can't diagnose people. You think like, maybe they had that.
Right.
But that one is very interesting. And yes, young men for sure. And okay, moving on to temporal lobe ADHD. So they have the core symptoms, core 5, and this one is specifically tied to a lot of learning and recall and memory. And they also can be quicker to anger because they're sitting in class, they're seeing things on the board, and everyone else is able to recite it. And they're having problems, right? It's not clicking. And it's probably been going on for so long that it's normal for them. So they just have low grades. So they're just seen as, he or she is just not the brightest.
Which is the type where you have to read the paragraph 5 or 6 or 7 times?
I think that would be, I'd probably say anxious or limbic.
Okay.
Yeah. And this one actually, reading the paragraph 5 or 6 times, this one could definitely be under that umbrella. Those 3 specifically, yeah, I would say. And yeah, it would be like they're sitting with their math teacher and they're going over the problem and it's just not sticking. And so they get angry. They might have an outburst, but some people can regulate. This one is harder again for boys because they've got.
Yeah, and I'm a big reading comprehension buff, and a lot of make it or break it parts of SAT and ACT. Both of those are reading comprehension. If you're kind of stuck in some sort of bizarre paragraph,
right,
you're going to be in trouble. Okay, just saying.
And this one, I think this one usually could be identified earlier because it would really affect reading comprehension skills and things like learning your ABCs, learning your multiplication tables, like those. It would show, because unless these kids are just, their IQ is just through the roof. If they're anywhere average or even a slightly above average, this is going to show up pretty early if somebody's paying attention. It would be, not being able to memorize, 2 times 2, and when everyone else is like seeing it, getting it, and for some reason it's just not clicking.
So you're, like you said, you're probably more knowledgeable about this than many licensed professionals. And I like that because, you're kind of a member of the club as well. I mean, aren't we all to some degree, but I got you, with yours. And you're studying a Dr. Amen and stuff like that. So suffice it to say that you have coaching interventions that are tailored to each subtype. Is that a fair?
Yes.
Yes. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, kind of gives you, or Caroline, her, the breadth and depth, right, to be able to interface and help all kinds of folks with various forms of ADHD. And not only that, you have your own personal experience with it. And yet, you're kind of the poster child for it in a good way, in that, right? You went to Baylor, you finished real estate license, coaching certification. So you've actually finished several tasks in your life to get to where you've gone, right? So you're living proof, right, that this can be harnessed in a good way, or I'll let you say that because you got to speak for you. But so I like that, right? This is one of those situations like we do with some of the folks in substance use recovery that, hey, I have this, experiential base with this, but wow, sounds like you have the experience, but a whole lot of professional and biological understanding as well.
Thank you, Bruce. That's kind.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I told you I was a nerd, so on this, I love this stuff. I really do, and I'm confident that I can tailor my meetings to help each individual thrive based on their own set of systems, so that they can just have a better daily life. That's my goal. So,
yeah, I really, There's two things running through my mind right now. Actually, what was his name? Lee Armstrong. I don't know if you remember Colleyville. It was a guy, Dr. Lee Armstrong, Colleyville Family Medicine on 26 back in the day, right?
Wait, Doctor. Yes. Okay. I can see the letters.
I know, right? I know. Okay, so when my practice was beginning, he would medicate because he's a physician. And I was the only male therapist in Southlake at that time.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I was the only male therapist that, actually, let me qualify, that saw adolescents.
Okay.
So, holy smokes. I was carrying that torch for some of those kids. And this is back in the Stone Ages, man. 2004, man.
Oh, shush.
Anyway,
but not here.
Okay, but I'm just saying in terms of
right.
What we know now, right? About brain functioning, we just didn't know then, man. So anyway, what I'm saying is, you might want to do a similar thing. Like if there was a psychiatrist or a physician that was treating through medication a lot of these patients, if you will, you could be the coach that does the in-home training, the in-home exercises, the in-home follow through in their home. at a Starbucks, at a restaurant. Because why? A coach can do that. A coach can go to somebody's home. A coach can meet a client in a restaurant. An LPC shouldn't, cannot, typically, right? An LMFT shouldn't. An LPC, a licensed psychologist, should only be, I shouldn't say, but either in the office or telehealth session, something like that. You really don't want to confuse any kind of those boundaries, but coaches have the ability to do that. So, I'm certainly super hopeful for your ability to either link up with physicians who have clients and patients that don't have their own mental health provider, and or link up with mental health providers that have clients with various forms of ADHD, and then you kind of help with their treatment plan as well as your own expertise outside of those office sessions. So I really think this is a niche thing that you could do. Especially I see you going to Ursuline or Hockaday right now. You know what I mean, and being able to just just talk to the counselors there, and that should be game, set, match for you. But anyway,
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great.
Carry on. Back to you.
I'm really excited because at this age, I was so. I actually went to, I won't name a name. I went to a specialist when I was about 13, 14, because I was diagnosed a little bit late because, I was just so smart. I just hit it. No, but I was able to get through with, B's, and it was fine. And I studied really hard and I wanted to please my parents, but it was exhausting. And so it's like, I have such compassion for these kids because, one, if they're just diagnosed, they don't know what that means. And two, obviously their doctor is going to explain it to them and their parents, and they can read on Google. But again, they're ADHD, so they may or may not be able to really click in and understand what that means for their life. And Here's the big thing, and I was going to end with this, but ADHD, and I'll kind of talk about the upsides of it, but it can be a superpower. It really, really can be. In my real estate business, I can do 10 different things at one time and handle it. And a lot of people just can't do that. And if you really are able to play to your strengths, it can be an absolute superpower, truly. Socially, I mean, you can, for entrepreneurship, I just want to speak life into these young adolescents. Like, it's going to be okay. Grades might be really hard, but real life is going to be easier. You just got to learn the skills now. So, I'd love to be that centerpiece between, the parents and them getting into college and the professors and their doctor, hopefully, and just be that extra arm, that extra layer of help, extra blanket.
So yeah, there's that, getting through high school, getting them into college. Then you could also market yourself. I understand that you were part of the Greek community, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Alpha Chi Omega.
There you go.
If there's anyone watching.
There you go. So, interfraternity council, whatever the sorority equivalent of that is, etc. Maybe it's the same. I don't know, but then some sort of helping these folks that are freshmen, and they're having to adapt to, like, oh, I didn't really have homework in high school. Well, shit. That's college. College is homework. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's papers, and that's the hard part. Yes, you'll have assignments for math, but it's a lot of times I find they struggle with it's the projects that are 6 weeks out. It's the final project that you have to do with your group, and you didn't do your group work. I mean, it's just, and then it goes back to the bury your head in the sand. And it's, again, there are the 7 types, and everyone is different, but there are some, a lot of overlapping similarities for sure.
And again, that's just another market in terms of, we talk about the private high schools or whatever, and other types of high schools. Talk about then, you have TCU, SMU, UTD, a plethora of schools, DBU, and it, not necessarily through the Greek thing, but just helping these college kids in their dorm, in their house, or whatever, you know what I mean, make it through college. So I think that's a huge area.
I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to it.
And it's a huge area that's underserved.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. There's really not, I've done my market research. There's a lot of people that, market themselves as ADD specialists or ADHD specialists. And, they've got the TikToks and they've got the, the fun little, email me and set up a session, but I'm here, I'm local, I'm in DFW. So I love doing virtual because I'm in my home and I, get to hang out with my snoozing always dog. And, that's great. But I also love being able to, go see people face to face. And my client now, luckily I do get to see him face to face. And I'd say I can usually keep a virtual session really on track 90% of the time, but in person, I know it's going to be 99%.
Yeah. Hands down. Hands down.
I mean, this, you've done this for decades. So
I much prefer live over virtual coaching, and for sure in the counseling sphere. But in a post-COVID world, it is an option. And you know what? It's better than nothing. Certainly it's better than nothing. And there is a form of engagement there, and people can actually do tasks, and you can, I've actually done in COVID, I had a lot of book work that I would have clients do, like literally book work. Answer the question, read this, reflect on it, answer the question, and I'd make them say at least 4 or 5 sentences that are meaningful. And, just go, and man, it was okay. We actually, I was able to get, some good stuff because the book work served as this, kind of the prompt and stuff that they could do and whatever else. So anyhow.
And it holds their feet to the fire. They've got to do it or they're showing up with no homework.
Hey man, getting in trouble.
So you don't want to be in trouble with Bruce Cameron.
In trouble, man. No, man. No. There's lots of consequences here. So okay. So I really.
I've got 5, 6, and 7 left. ADHD types.
Oh, okay. On. So we have.
We're almost done.
We have 7 minutes. So we have 7 minutes. So go.
Okay, we got it. Limbic, way too much activity in the limbic part of the brain. Mood control center, and they're moody. That's the gist. 6, ring of fire is interesting. It almost can come off as someone that's autistic because they're overstimulated by noise, lights, feeling, sounds, an itchy tag in the back. They can have rage issues because they're not focusing. This is the most severe type of ADHD, and it will usually be diagnosed between ages 3 and 7. So but as adults, it can still be really hard to transition, even if you are diagnosed. And then there's anxious ADHD, which is just over-focusing, a lot of physical stress, a lot of stomach sickness because they're so anxious because of the tasks that they can't do. So there you go.
Wow.
Those are the 7.
Now, hold on real quick, y'all. Everybody listening, the stomach sick, this one's going to be a good one. Not so much in college, but in elementary school. Wow. I bet you 20-30% of those stomach cases could be related to what you're saying on the spectrum. All right, go ahead.
Oh, that's it. That's that. Those are the 7 I just went through really quick. But yeah,
okay.
This one.
No,
the first are more classics, and then the last 2 are a little bit more. Our last 3 are a little bit more novel.
Right.
But they tend to show up pretty early.
So I really like it. Well, I don't say I like it. I'm sorry that people suffer from this. So let me rephrase that. But I do. Anyway, I do. It's interesting to me that some other disorders, there's co-occurring symptoms here with what you're saying, and could be going on with client XYZ with type 1, 2, 3, but also another provider would also kind of label these co-occurring disorders, right? And it may be as more of a function of the ADHD, right? And then this other disorder, perhaps, or symptom feature is merely a vestige of that. Like I've had clients that had asthma, but because of the asthma, they had panic and anxiety disorder. But you really, you can't really treat that anxiety disorder because the trigger for it is more of an organic asthma.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not a thought trigger per se, or agoraphobia or whatever. So The stomach thing, man, that's huge on
Huge.
that one. That boy for the I'm thinking fourth, fifth, sixth graders all day long.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to the nurse because my stomach. And blah, blah, blah. You remember? And they come up now. Some of it, they're gaming.
Of course.
But you know what? I've run into some that were pretty legit. And you know what? Those kids had some full-on ADHD stuff going on there. It's just that, we know so much more now, and so much more. But we know so much more about this syndrome, if you will. But because of Dr. Amen and others' research, that we can really target interventions and target some great behavioral interventions. Like you said, it could be their superpower, and as long as they can harness it, they can use it for good. And you're spot on there. Some of the most brilliant, genius people and entrepreneurs do have ADHD, and they're doing quite well. So, awesome. So real quick, I know it's a little bit soon, but how can people, what are the ways that people can reach you or find you?
Yes. So it's, it's talk to Caroline Coaching. Coaching@gmail.com. So you can email me. I'm working on a website right now. So I can definitely send a link and drop that in, but that'll be coming up. So
Talk to Caroline Coaching.
Yes. Talk to Caroline Coaching. Yes.
Like that. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're working on a website and some other stuff. And
I'm so sorry. I said it wrong. I changed it to, because I didn't like that. It was too long. It's Talk to C Coaching. Sorry. Talk TOC Coaching. Because it was way too long. I'd made it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is too long. So it's Talk to C Coaching. Pardon me.
At gmail.com.
Gmail.com. Yes, sir.
Well, that's
yeah. Just Talk to Caroline Coaching. It was just too long.
Well,
hey, I can end on a good anecdote story for the parents.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I was diagnosed a little late. I'm 13, 14. I'm in school, and my very wonderful professor at my high school and freshman, comes up and he tells my mom, "I'm not buying this dumb blonde routine." I'm not getting it, and he didn't mean it offensively, right? So I get diagnosed, and I realized that there was a disconnect between me and the board. So all I had to do was go before the class, have spend 10 minutes, have him write up a lesson for me one-on-one. A's. There was a disconnect. And so it was that one thing. And if I would have had a coach or someone kind of looking after me, or someone really invested in, my parents were, no dig to them. But in the academic, sense, we had small classrooms. They're like, why is she not getting it? But I had to have someone, I'm a relator. I needed to relate. I needed someone kinesthetically next to me showing me.
I think that's a good point. I was adjunct faculty adjunct faculty at Columbia College of Missouri for 19 years at the base, at the military base in Fort Worth. And I'd always get an ADA list, Americans with Disabilities Act list, at the beginning of the semester. And sure, here's these folks that either legitimate or imagined, they're on this list with ADHD and stuff like that. Like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? And all these different types of accommodations and those things. So I'm glad at least you went to the faculty and said, look, this is what I need,
Yes. And then I was the first ADHD student to get extra time at my school. So I need extra time.
The accommodations piece.
I need grades. I just couldn't get through the problems quick enough. And so accommodations, parents, fight for them.
Hey. Well, there you go. Well, folks, see, that was quick, wasn't it? It was really easy.
Flew right by.
Yeah, man. So it was another great episode here today on the Concierge Coaches Show. Hope you guys learned a lot. I know I did. I took copious notes on our over-focused ADHD. I'm going to definitely fire up Sparky here and look on that. Very, very interesting. Thanks to Caroline for coming on the show today. And folks, you can find us on latalkradio.com. Obviously, our shows are archived. We're also on Apple Podcast, or on Amazon Audible, or on iHeartMedia, and several other aggregators. I'm so proud of our little show that we've been able to do. Thank you. We've been able to do that organically. And I can be reached at conciergecoach.net. And Wayne is at Wayne_515 @yahoo.com, and he'll be back next week. So until then, have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time on the Concierge Coaches Show on LA Talk Radio. Bye, everybody.
You're listening to the Concierge Coaches Show with Bruce Cameron and Wayne Fritz, only on LA Talk Radio.